occasion. A big welcome to everybody who's in the Great Hall. A big welcome to all of you that are at Zoom, whether that's at home or somewhere else. And a big welcome to the young people who are gathered by the fire, but are listening and taking part in it as well. So a big welcome to you. So it is a really joyous occasion to welcome back the very lovely Bodhivasini to Sheffield. She's a shiny new member of the Teshwara Buddhist order, and she's come back from her ordination retreat at Adhisthana. And I'm just welcoming, my name is Satyajyoti, and I'm welcoming her on behalf of the centre. I'm the chair of the centre. So welcoming her back to this Sangha from all of us. So this evening, we're going to hear from quite a lot of people. I'm going to do a little intro. After that, and if I get this order wrong, please correct me. So I keep anyway. So we'll have rejoicings. So these are going to be rejoicings in Bodhivasini from her friends. I'm sure lots of other people would like to have done it, but the three lucky people who got to do it were our Surya Mati, who'll be on Zoom, Janet, who's here in person, and Shanta Siddhi can't be here at all, but her rejoicing is going to be read by Sangha Gita. So when it comes to that bit, we'll just go straight to Surya Mati, and then after that, Janet, if you just come up, that would be great, and then Sangha Gita. Then we're going to have Garlanding. So traditionally, of course, when someone comes back from their ordination retreat, we would have had a big kind of party downstairs with loads of food. There'd be lots of hugs, there'd be and garlanding, and a lot of that we can't do today. So what's going to happen with the garlanding is the garland's been made by Vicky, I think, yeah? And it's been made by Vicky wearing a mask and using hand sanitizer, I hear. So it's been placed on the shrine here. So Bodhivasini can just come and pick it up yourself and garland yourself. So yeah. And then after that, Punyamala, who is Bodhivasini's private preceptor, will come up and introduce her to us. And then I'm going to lead us in a threefold puja. Oh, the most important bit of the evening, is to hear from Bodhivasini herself about her experience of the retreat, whatever you want to say. So we'll have that. Then we'll do the threefold puja, just go straight through. Bodhivasini will make an offering in silence at the end with the three traditional offerings. And then Leela Mati, who is on Zoom somewhere, will be leading us in the blessings. And then she's going to chant the Padmasambhava mantra. Now, one of the rules about being in a place of worship during COVID is that we can't make too much noise, I'm afraid. We can't sing and we can't shout. So what would be great is if when we just listen to the mantra and just, do it internally. Big practice is to do mantras internally. So we can just, I think that we're going to hear it 7 times, the Padmasambhava mantra. And you just allow it to just be in your body. And after that, we're going to finish with 3 sadhus. So sadly, everyone in the hall has got to be quiet. We'll just do a quiet sadhu. But everyone at home can be as noisy as you like. So what we're going to do is, when it comes to the sadhus, I say, now we're going to do 3 sadhus. Vicky is going to turn off the mute, and if you turn off your own mute at that point, and then just do the 3 sadhus as loud as you think your neighbors or your pets will allow you to do that. So yeah, and then that will be the finish of the evening. People in the hall, if you want to make offerings, you can do that at the end individually. Okay, so hopefully I have been through the order. I'm just going to start off with a few words about what we're doing. So I started by saying this is a really joyous event, and the question could be, why is it so joyful? Why is it so joyful when someone joins the order? And obviously it's really important for Bodhivasini herself, but I also think it's very significant for the rest of us, for her friends, for the Sangha here in Sheffield, but the wider Sangha as well, and for the world. And there is 2 aspects of ordination. There's the internal or the private, and the public or more external. And that's marked in the 2 rituals or ceremonies that Bodhivasini's participated in on her ordination retreat, the private and the public ordinations. And in taking our ordination vows, in participating in the ordination, we are following in the footsteps of many, many people who over the last 2,500 years have dedicated their lives to wakening up, to achieving Bodhi, to waking up to how things really are as the Buddha understood them. So to connecting with the great mystery of life, the great beauty of reality. So it's like we are on a quest, a spiritual quest, to discover for ourselves in our own experience the nature of reality and to understand the causes of suffering and how we can do something about them, how we can alleviate them. So the Buddha identified how suffering comes from the human heart, from human behavior, from greed and from hatred, which comes from a deep misunderstanding of reality and ignorance. So this is a quest that we're all undertaking in our own different ways to understand reality, to wake up, to achieve Bodhi. And this quest is one that's taken individually, reflected in the private ordination. And the private ordination is where Punyamala, who's going to speak later, who is Bodhivasini's private preceptor, Punyamala gave Bodhivasini her new name. And it's also a quest we do with others. We're a fellowship. We do this quest together, which is reflected in the public ordination. And that's where Bodhivasini joined the Triratna Buddhist order. So Bodhivasana is practicing within a particular context. She's chosen to practice within this context, this order, this Sangha. And because we're so interconnected with others, we can't actually just practice on our own as Buddhists. That would be impossible. We have to be practicing with other people. And there's a myth, a story that illustrates this, which is about the story of Avaloka Teshwara. So Avaloka Teshwara is a mythic figure, an archetypal figure, a bodhisattva, a figure who took a vow to save all sentient beings on his own. And he tried for millions and millions of years, of eons, to do that. It is a story, it's a myth. But what happened is he looked down and there were still lots and lots of beings who weren't saved. So he just cracked into thousands of pieces. He just fell apart. It's the equivalent of falling apart when he realized he just couldn't do it on his own. He'd taken a vow to save all sentient beings, but he couldn't do it on his own. So he was put back together again by his teacher, by the Buddha Amitabha, who put him back together with 1,000 arms and 11 heads. And each of those 1,000 arms is carrying a different tool. So the archetype, the myth, is that the order, the Triratna Buddhist order, is Avaloka Teshwara, and each of us in the order, we're one arm of Avaloka Teshwara, each doing our own work. So together we can be a bodhisattva, we can save all sentient beings, we can't do it on our own, but we can do it all together. So as an order, we practice individually, ourselves. We take responsibility for our own mental states, our own practice. We practice as this order, this myth of Avaloka Teshwara, achieving much more together, and we practice for the world. We practice to do what we can to work on the causes of suffering, the greed, the hatred, the ignorance. So that's why I think it's so joyous for all of us when another person has joined this noble quest, another person has joined the order. And it's even better that it's the particularly lovely and many gifted person, Bodhivasini. So a big welcome to you, Bodhivasini, on behalf of the Sheffield Sangha. So now we're going to hear some rejoicings from Bodhivasini's friends, and we're going to start with Suryamati, and then we'll go straight from Suryamati to Janet.
Okay, well, hello everybody. I am delighted to be rejoicing in my friend Bodhivasini. So Bodhivasini and I have been studying the Dharma together for many years, more than a decade. And our friendship grew out of that connection. And I just want to start by saying what a delight she is to study with. She comes at the study material from an intuitive and a very experiential point of view, which can bring great depth and weight to Dharma discussions. And yeah, it helps make other people realize that they too feel something in response to the Dharma, as well as thinking about it. She really resonates with the Dharma in a very deep part of her being. And I'm going to miss her an awful lot from the study group. And if she should decide to lead Mitra study at some point, then they'll be very lucky Mitras indeed. So I haven't got very long to describe Bodhivasini's key qualities, her wonderful qualities. She's got very many of them. So I'm just going to pick out a few. And the first of them is that she is a really creative woman. She writes well, she works in all sorts of media, and she draws beautifully. And like any true artist, she uses her art to explore and deepen her understanding of things, including the Dharma. And one of the great delights of studying with her was her Mitra study projects. And I remember on several occasions, a whole host of people presenting their Mitra projects, and we would come to Bodhivasini and she would open a folder or she would open a box and reveal something very beautiful, and everyone leant in to see what it was that she'd done. And she would reveal some beautiful intricate drawing perhaps, and then begin to explain how the drawing illustrated what we'd been studying and the ideas and her own resonance with the ideas and the relevance of the ideas to her life. And then during the last Mitra study module that she did with me and the rest of a post-Mitra study group, I'd enjoy looking behind where she was sitting on Zoom to the wall of her room, where there was a series of blue squares on the wall. And these blue squares, she showed us them in close-up once, were representations of the Lakshanas, very lovely, very comely representations of the Lakshanas that she'd worked through. Okay, so a very creative woman. And earlier in her working life, Bodhivasini worked as part of a theatre company. And that experience, together with her creativity and her enormous sense of fun, gave birth to the Sheffield Buddhist Centre pantomimes, which were an enormous gift to the Sangha. And there was a huge amount of Bodhivasini in those pantomimes. And in a way, they reflect some of her best qualities. So her playfulness shone through some of the wonderful panto order names like Sugar Me Tea and Suchagoti. Yeah, Bodhivasini, I just hope that you have time to enjoy your own name before anyone gets the chance to play with it. But if they do play with it, I'm sure you'll find it very amusing. And then she has a huge talent for seeing the potential in other people. So she brought out the Panto Dame in Gavin Bateman, the Principal Boy in Sankagita, the Beanstalk in Janet, the Princess in Preti, the Queen in Maitridasa, and the custard pie slapstick in Jayagupta. So yeah, she just sees what people are capable of and lets them do it. She's also incredibly positive and encouraging as director, and she always made me feel that my stumbling improvisation was making a real contribution to the performance. And finally, in relation to the pantos, she just had the stick-with-it energy of a theatre professional. The show goes on, in spite of crises, in spite of absences, in spite of inadequacies. And the panto always did go on, to the great delight of very many Sangha members. And Bodhivasini has shown the same sort of patient tenacity with the ups and downs of the spiritual life and life in general, I guess. And she has really stuck with her practice of the Dharma through thick and thin. And even a global pandemic didn't stop her being ordained. So yeah, another key quality, and perhaps the one I'll mention last, is her intuition. She's a very, very intuitive person. She knows things before she understands them often, before she knows why she knows. And that's true in her intuitions about people and events. And perhaps it's most evident in her response to the Dharma. She has always had a really intuitive resonance with the Dharma. From the very beginning, from her introductory course and early days at Sanganite, and from the very first Mitra study group that we were both in together many years ago. It seems that the Dharma has been her guiding light. It brought her to Sheffield Buddhist Centre in the first place. It guided her through the highs and lows of life, family life, of working life, life in the Sangha. And it finally guided her into the order, where it almost feels, where it already feels as if she belongs. So I'm sure that it will continue to guide her towards enlightenment, so that she will dwell, Bodhivasini, more and more in the Bodhi in your name. Welcome to the order.
Okay, so it gives me huge pleasure to stand here and talk about Bodhivasini. Hope the voice lasts out. So I first met Bodhivasini about 12 years ago in that very study group with Suryamati. And Suryamati decided at the end of the module that she was going to give us a test. It was a disaster. I think between us, we got about 3 out of 30. One of the questions was, can you explain Samyak? No, we couldn't. So I hissed across to Bodhivasini, it's a male yak. And one of her most endearing qualities is that she trusts me at all times. And she piped up, it's a male yak. The look on Suryamati's face was priceless, and I laughed so hard I was nearly sick. I was forgiven, and so one of the qualities I love most about Bodhivasini is that she is so good-natured, and I mean good-natured. We laugh a lot, and I admit that I love to tease her. But she is so self-deprecating. She has such an ability to laugh at herself, and she makes me laugh. She's very good company. Bodhivasini is immensely kind and supportive, and kindness goes a long way with me. There have been times when I've been fed up or ill, and we hadn't been able to meet up because of lockdown. And hers has always been the soothing voice at the end of the phone, encouraging me or giving me practical advice. And she does have a very soothing voice. One of my friends, a very close friend, died last year, and I was left with my own loss, her grieving and confused family, and 2 cats that I had to find homes for. And this proved really hard. I finally rehomed one cat, but just couldn't find a home for the other. And this distressed me for weeks. Bodhivasini was the one who said that I didn't have to worry about this alone, and that we would jolly well find out a home for this cat together. And in fact, she was the one who found a home for Ricky in the end. And that cat now has better living conditions than I do. But Bodhivasini is kind to everyone. She helps and supports others. She is the sympathetic voice and ear in the kitchen at Sanganites. She is the thoughtful and kind voice in the many study groups we've been in together. And she is a really careful listener. She is one of the most empathetic people that I know. In fact, Bodhivasini has helped me in that she's made me realize, more than anyone else in my life actually, that I don't need to have to carry everything by myself. I don't have to carry all the woes of the world. I can share the burden, and it's actually not a weakness. Which brings me to another quality, perceptiveness. Bodhivasini thinks things through very carefully, but she also has a strong, emotional, intuitive recognition and reaction to things and people. So if she says to me, I think than I do actually listen. We've spent many hours on my allotment, socially distanced of course, sitting and putting the world to rights. And I have realized that she sees people and situations very clearly. And most people don't really see others very clearly. A lot of projection goes on. I argue that what she sees in me is actually the better me. She says, no, she sees me, which is both frightening and uplifting. We all know that Bodhivasini is an amazingly creative person and has been very generous with her time and energy over the years doing things like the pantomime. She has great ideas and she's great fun to work with. So last year we wrote the pantomime together. And I'll just say now, easiest person to work with ever. And no big ego to cope with. We met up in Waterstones to sort the final draft, and we sat in a corner shrieking hysterically and drinking lots of coffee. Bodhivasini had come along with a scene that she'd really labored over, but it wasn't working. She really wanted to keep this scene, and we couldn't make it work. In the end, I sent her off to look at the books for half an hour, and when she came back, the scene had disappeared, and there was something else in its place. There was a little wail of, "My scene," followed quickly by, "Oh, it didn't work." And that was that. No ego, no histrionics. And she's a great producer and director, partly because she deals with people kindly and generously. In rehearsal, she is astonishingly even-tempered, kind, and good-humored. Even when she is really frustrated, it comes out nicely. And I think this comes from the fact that Bodhivasini is a flexible and open person. There is no rigidity of views. She has the great ability to enter into another person's point of view and walk with it for a while without feeling obliged to impose her own opinion. And sometimes the Dharma can't be explained adequately. Words aren't enough. It has to be entered into, felt, inhabited. And Bodhivasini does that. I have been witness to Bodhivasini's practice over the years. Sometimes when you are close to someone, the changes aren't so apparent as they happen so gradually. But over the last couple of years, I've been struck by how her practice has strengthened and deepened and how it has sustained her through some difficult times. She is a gentle person. But please don't mistake gentleness for fragility or vulnerability. She is very strong. She has been through some difficult and challenging times in her life, and I think that even those close to Bodhivasini don't fully realize just how hard some things have been for her. And yet she has come through it all with great grace and humor, and at this point, no bitterness, which is most admirable. It is probably obvious by now that Bodhivasini is a great and steadfast companion on this spiritual path. So this spiritual path, as we all know, brings great joy. But sometimes it is plain hard. You might wander off the path for a while and find yourself in a bit of a desert with no sustenance. Or it turns into a jungle and you find yourself hacking your way through thinking, maybe it's easier to be a Seventh-day Adventist or a pagan. Pagan sounds fun. But then there's Bodhivasini's voice in the distance from the path going, "Oi, get on with it." She's a steadfast friend, always honest, always encouraging. There's a particular line in Hamlet, which I've always thought to be an excellent piece of advice. "Those friends thou hast and their adoption tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel." Bodhisattvini's friendship has been incredibly important to me over the years, and I certainly grapple her to my soul with hoops of steel. Not that I believe in the soul, obviously, but you know what I mean. I see this spiritual path stretching ahead of us all, and I know there will be many ups and downs. But what can make us happy and give us confidence is that we have such an excellent friend and spiritual companion, and she who is now Bodhivasini.
So Shantasiddhi is Bodhivasini's KM and is unfortunately in Scotland. So she was really, really sad not to be here. She wanted to rejoice in Bodhivasini. And just so you also know that she was on the retreat that Bodhivasini's just come back from. She was ordaining someone there. So she spent some time with Bodhivasini on that retreat. And she says, "It was amazing to hear Bodhivasini's name for the first time. I have to say, she'd been looking pretty happy about something since her private ordination. So that's who she is, I thought. Thank you, Punyamala. I didn't realize that." She says, Shantasiddhi says, "I knew she had from the beginning a strong response to the Dharma. And of course, I knew she was a wise and dedicated truth seeker who had made some courageous decisions in her life. But until that moment, she was just my friend, Kathy, loving, funny, sensitive, and creative. Come on, she writes the Sheffield Panto. So listen more carefully next performance. It might lead you to enlightenment."
So, Bodhivasini, have I got this right, that now it's time for you to come and be garlanded on our behalf? Garland yourself. I think you can take your mask off if you want. Oh,
She's going to go and wave it at the
Just seems to be lots of paraphernalia. It was my very great honour and privilege to ordain Bodhivasini privately about 2 weeks ago or something like that, or 2.5 weeks ago. And her ordination took place at our centre, Adhisthana, which is in Herefordshire near Malvern. Adhisthana means the place of blessings, and it's where Urgyen Sangharakshita lived for the last few years of his life. It's surrounded by a low circle of hills and overlooked by the Malverns. It's situated in lush English countryside, surrounded by fields and apple orchards. The grounds of Adhisthana are a marvel. A beautiful garden has been created out of a grass field, and the herbaceous borders were still full of a riot of flowers. Bodhivasini found it impossible to imagine what it looked like about 4 or 5 years ago when it was just field. And it's been described as the place where the light of the transcendental makes landfall. It's the place where the Triratna Buddhist order and movement touch and experience Sangharakshita's vision for Buddhism. So that's where Bodhivasini had her ordination retreat. And during the private part of the ordination ceremony, I witnessed her commitment to the three jewels, to the Buddha, to the Dharma, the Buddha's teaching, and to the Sangha, the community of his followers. And I also gave her the Buddhist name, Bodhivasini. It's common in many religious traditions to take a new name when you wholeheartedly commit yourself to a spiritual life. It signifies the fact that you're putting your old identity behind you, leaving old habits, and from now on you're choosing that your life should be defined by your spiritual aspiration. Specifically, in Bodhivasini's case, this means she's now decisively committed herself to the Buddhist path. Her intention is to live a life rooted in the Buddha's vision, turning away from worldly values. She's embarked, as Satyajyoti said, on the noble quest. And she's decided, she's decided to do this within the context of our community, the Triratna Buddhist order and movement. So a new name, there are different facets and ways to approach a name, and one's relationship with a name changes over time. So a name can be an affirmation and a recognition of who you deeply are. When Sangharakshita, who ordained me, gave me the name Punyamala, I had an immediate sense of recognition and coming home to myself. So yes, so a name can be an affirmation of who you deeply are. It can also be a place of peace where you truly rest in who you truly and deeply are. So it can be a sort of place in a way where you can sort of take refuge that actually this is who you are and that's been seen and recognized by other people. A name can be a teaching or a path showing you the direction that your life needs to take and the qualities that you may need to develop. So my name felt like path practice. Punya is, Sangharakshita said, all positive spiritual qualities, which has felt like quite a tall order at times. But definitely it's felt at times like a path of practice. And sometimes names can be experienced as koans, and you kind of wonder what on earth the name means or how it relates to you, or you can relate to one part of the name more than the other. Essentially, it's a relationship and a path that will unfold over time as one sort of grows into it. So a name is something to reflect on, to discover, to put into practice. And you discover different facets of your name as time goes on, and you make more and more associations with it. So I'm now going to say something about Bodhivasini's name, she who dwells in awakening. So this is a Sanskrit name. Bodhi is a very familiar word for Buddhists. It means full supreme awakening. That is the state of being and consciousness which the Buddha attained when he became enlightened under the Bodhi tree. And actually, I'm just looking at the Buddha under the Bodhi tree here. Bodhi is a word that represents that completely new and other state of being and consciousness. Yes, so Bodhi is awakening to reality, to the ultimate truth of things. As we've already heard, Kathy has always had a strong intuitive understanding of the Dharma as truth. And this kept her going and her practice alive through the ups and downs of family life with all its demands, and then through some very difficult times. Now, this aspiration to see, to know the truth, to awaken to the fullness of wisdom, love, and compassion will be firmly at the center of her life. Vasini is a beautiful word which means to dwell. If you dwell in something, you are fully immersed in it, permeated by it. It affects all of your being. You are never apart from it. So Bodhivasini will come to dwell more and more fully in awakening. The awakened state, Bodhi, will become her dwelling, her abode, will permeate her whole being more and more deeply, will permeate body, speech, and mind. As we've already heard, Bodhivasini has many positive qualities. In particular, she has a big, generous, loving heart. She's very aware of others and their needs and sensitive to them. She's a caring, creative, and kind friend. As she comes to dwell more deeply in Bodhi, her actions, her creativity, and her love will be expressions of her realization of the truth. They will be perfumed by wisdom, and so she will be even more effective in all that she does than she already is. An associated meaning of Vasini is fragrance. Bodhivasini's life will flower into an expression of Maha Karuna. She will have the fragrance of the perfect life, sweeter than incense, which spreads in all directions throughout the world. So, dear Bodhivasini, may you come to dwell ever more deeply in Bodhi, benefiting many with your wisdom, love, and kindness.
Do I not? Well, we're not ready with you. Oh, okay. Well, I have got it on. I just. That feels better. Well, should I? Don't need it. Oh no, it's all got tangled. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, feeling just like a bit overwhelmed, actually. What lovely, lovely things. And thank you so much. Just thank you so much for everyone who's here. Thank you, and I'm not going to look up there because I'm looking at the camera. Thank you to friends and family and Sangha, the Sangha for being here tonight. I've seen Jen and Sue, my lovely cousins from America. So yeah, just really lovely to see you, and my sister, and I think 2 of my sons. I don't know where the third one is. Oh, and yeah, so yeah, just a delight to be here, and especially here at Sheffield Buddhist Centre, which has been a place of great significance for me over the years. So yeah, just delightful to see you all. Thank you. So we're currently in this strange new world, and I just thought I would take some time just to share that experience, the experience I've had recently, and I have some props with me that are quite key, so I'm just going to get those out.
in a way, they've crystallized the experience. So I have, you know, my mask. I have a really lovely bag, which has my robe in it, which I also will get out. And my experience of ordination was very much hand sanitizer. This bag that we carried around all our things in all of the time. 2 books. I took with me the Tibetan book of the Dead, and I took Lord of the Rings. So those I brought with me, and I also have in here that my lovely brother gave me many, many moons ago. I hope he's still in here. My Padmasambhava. So they came with me on retreat. And yeah. So I received my letter inviting me to ordination back in March. It was 1 week before lockdown. And in a way, lockdown and COVID-19 have been a big part of the conditions surrounding my ordination. And for a long time, I didn't really believe that it was going to happen. Hold it lightly was the message. Just let go of expectations. And in a way, I was able to let go of expectations, I think, more easily than holding it lightly, as somebody pointed out to me. Although just before the retreat, there was a moment when I received the email with all the COVID precautions laid out for the retreat. And I did think, oh no, this is going to be awful. This isn't what I want. And that was interesting, expectations. You know, I would like it to be, well, I don't know, beautiful, magical, mythical, transcendental. Well, it didn't kind of look like that was going to happen. There are no candles, no incense, no chanting, mask wearing, social distancing, eating alone, although that didn't actually happen, designated toilet and shower, rules about making drinks, etc., etc. So it really felt like that email was a world of regulations, and we had to have daily temperature checks whilst we were there. And that reminded me of actually when I was expecting my youngest, Alfie, who's now 20. And I remember at that time, I wanted to have a beautiful birth with candles and music and essential oils. And what in reality happened was I had a cesarean, but I had a safe delivery of my child. And that was the bit that mattered. And in a way, that's how I saw actual ordination. It's a bit like the birth and death thing. I mean, it's a spiritual death and a spiritual rebirth. And you might want certain things, but the conditions are what they are. And what I wanted was to get ordained. Why? What is it about ordination that's so important? And what was it that I was holding on to so deeply and so tightly? I'm not sure I can really answer that rationally. It was something about being ready and a heartfelt wish to take my place in the order, to make the private public and be witnessed. All of that, a longing for something more. And this journey that started 9 years ago, culminating in September 2020. And so important did it feel, and so tightly did I actually hold it. I mean, I'm not sure I should really say that, but I think I did, that my poor sons had to leave home 2 weeks before. So I could self-isolate and reduce my risk of getting COVID. I would like to say they weren't actually homeless. I didn't just throw them out. But I was really grateful for the way that they responded to that and really embraced it and really understood it as well. So as we got closer to leaving, it got harder. And, you know, as realizing that the number of cases of COVID were rising and that if Sheffield had gone into lockdown, we wouldn't have been able to go. So I think those last 2 weeks were very uncertain, very unsettling, right until the end. And of course, you know, I just want to say this process that I've been through has been supported by so many in the Sangha. So from my study group buddies, from Suryamati, Shantasiddhi, my brother who introduced me to Buddhism all those years ago, so many more. And even with the difficult social sort of distancing conditions, I had support. Sangha, we would meet in the park with chips to socially distant. Meals with Janet, where I'd go round to her house with towel, soap, cutlery, plates for food, so we couldn't, you know, cross-contaminate. Because, you know, as people have said, you can't really do this on your own. You need your spiritual friends. And of course, Punyamala. Punyamala, my private preceptor. And Punyamala chose my name, and just this very special relationship that's developed over the years and continues to develop. And it was Punyamala who was able, you know, she was willing to also self-isolate to make this happen, to make it possible for me to go on my ordination retreat. And I am so grateful for that. Punyamala has a wisdom and a depth, and I take note of what she says. She also has a very comfortable sofa. So whilst I was self-isolating and it was getting harder, I was given some advice by Punyamala, and I always listen to Punyamala. Kathy, she said, the retreat will be intense, so don't do anything too heavy beforehand. Take it easy, watch telly, relax. So I did. I haven't told you this, Punyamala, but I found Selling Sunset on Netflix, which says it all, Selling Sunset. In Buddhism, you know, we talk about Mara. Mara is a lover of the mundane world, and Mara wants to keep us there. So Mara gets interested when we are about to do something that potentially threatens that. Mara loves to tell you that you're no good, that you're wasting your time, that there's no way you should be ordained, you're too, well, you know, take your pick. And even the Buddha, at the final stages of his enlightenment, encountered Mara. You know, Mara goes, who gives you the right to sit on the diamond throne? And the Buddha famously touches the earth with his hand, and the earth goddess appears to give witness. I had many conversations with Mara during the months leading up to ordination. I got very, very well acquainted, and Mara loved Selling Sunset. So this is a reality TV program where a group of beautiful women sell houses in LA, not just ordinary houses, but immensely decadent, fabulous, ridiculous houses. And they wear immensely decadent, fabulous clothes in the highest of heels. And it's like craving at its very best, worst. But it kept Mara happy, kept Mara quiet. And I watched all 3 series of Selling Sunset in that first week of my lockdown. And I was working quite long hours, so that's 3 series. And by the end I was done, and I was like feeling a little sick and restless. And I searched, it was a bit like I need something else. I did a lot of cleaning as well in that time. I needed something else to keep the demons at bay. And what I went back to was Lord of the Rings. And I read the first book, The Fellowship of the Ring, that week, The Mythic Journey. So from Selling Sunset to Lord of the Rings was kind of summed it up, really. And the myth of the journey feels really appropriate. So Sangharakshita talked about the significance of the journey to ordination in his talk, The Journey to Il Convento. And he said, it's a journey from the surface of things to the depths, from the conscious to the unconscious mind, from brain cells to bloodstream, from the modern to the archaic, from the present to the past, from the rational to the irrational. In order to travel towards a region of light and life, we have to travel towards and through the region of darkness and death. Well, Punyamala, Shantasiddhi and I weren't traveling through Italy to the Tuscan hills. We were traveling west on the M1, M42, M5, all the way to Malvern and just beyond. And this ordination retreat was held by very strict COVID rules, and it didn't feel that there was anything particularly mythic about that. So, you know, I arrived with a sense of trepidation, relief, mainly relief. And I think we all felt that. We'd made it, you know, and unless one of us got a high temperature reading in our daily temperature reading thing, we could relax, kind of. So 30 women who had come with the intention, like the heartfelt wish to make this happen, and all the other people working behind the scenes to make it happen, especially the community at Adhisthana, who put so much work into making it possible. I just think that in itself is extraordinary. All we had to do was follow the rules. We hand sanitized a lot, we wore a mask, we were socially distant, we would turn up at the right time, and try and train our bladders to fit into the timetable, because you had a designated toilet and mine was like a short walk, run away. So you just had to be kind of mindful of that. So the first evening that we arrived, we had a ritual involving our robes, the wearing of robes. And I have my robes with me and I'm going to put them on. It's also quite cold in here, so this is quite useful. So I might need the help of Sangha-Gita. Take that off. You can't really touch any. No, Sangha-Gita can't. Yeah, no, Sangha-Gita can't. You can't really do anything, can you? So, yeah, no, that's fine. I would like to say that these are very difficult to iron, and I have. Sorry. Yes, probably. Yeah. And I have, shall I take that off as well? So the robe, which we wore for all the shrine room activities. And I thought I'd show you what it looked like. Can you see, Janet? I'll move. It also has a belt. I feel like one of the, planes. And here's your belt. There's lots of ways of doing this, but I'm going to do it this way. So this is what I wore, what we wore for most of the ordination, the robes. And actually, I didn't know what I felt about the whole robe wearing thing, but it had a really quite big effect, and it made a really big difference to the retreat. So there's something about putting on a robe that connects you to each other, yeah, but also to the past, to those who've gone before. It feels like there's something really timeless and beautiful and something about simplicity. It stopped it being about me and mine and what should I wear and, oh, I like her dress and that jumper's nice and the shade of blue there. Ooh. You know, it became something more about the collective. It became something about the community and about intention. So we were, for those of you who know Adhisthana, we were in the library space. We couldn't use the main shrine room because there wasn't enough airflow. So we were in the library sort of atrium, and a huge painting of the refuge tree was at the backdrop to the shrine. And that in itself had a very strong effect. So there we were with our whole lineage from the Buddha to our teacher Sangharakshita. And that was just very, very potent. Every evening we would have a ritual, and normally there's incense and chanting and candles. But because we were in the library, there were no naked flames allowed. And I do remember thinking, well, that can't be true. There are 3 candles alight on the shrine. And it took me ages to realize that they were actually fake. They were really good quality fake candles, but they did, add to it. And there's a balcony running around the main space in the library. And so what I love about, our Buddhist community is that we're nothing if not creative. And, you know, one or two order members would make their way up there and chant a mantra, sometimes alone, or sometimes as a pair, and sometimes a Dharma verse was sung. And it was the most beautiful and evocative experience. Normally we're all chanting, but because of the restrictions, we couldn't. And it was just really interesting to see the effect of that. It was like listening to the sounds of these mantras, the door open, the sound wafting into the beautiful gardens, a lone voice singing. It was extraordinary. And there was an extraordinary atmosphere and a very strong connection between all of us. So we were masked for much of the time, in silence for much of the time, socially distant, and yet the quality of that retreat, the connection that we had, and that heartfelt wish that this was going to happen, that we were going to get ordained. There was a real strong desire for everyone to make this happen. And in a sense, it didn't feel like it was just about us as individuals. I mean, yes, of course it was, but it was also about bringing into being something else, something beyond the mundane world, something really important, significant that we need, that's beyond us, beyond our experience in the here and now in 2020. And on occasions it did really feel like we were in, you know, two planes of existence, really. So as part of your, you know, your private ordination, you're given your name, as Punyamala has already explained. And when she told me my name, it was, you know, Bodhivasini, it was a little like, oh, of course, that's my name. Like a remembrance, like I'd remembered something from a really long time ago. And I had this very, very strong image of a pure white lotus floating in the heart of a really deep, dark well. I love my name. I don't know what it means for me yet, but that will unfold over time, as will the whole experience, which I just don't think I've really, you know, quite really sort of processed, actually. But what I do know is that, you know, it touches something that resonates for me on quite a deep level. It feels like a big name, and I hope I can live up to it, find my way with it, and discover its meaning for me. Yeah, so after my ordination, I think I might have missed something that I was going to say. No. So after my ordination, I felt, yeah, especially when I returned home, that everything's both the same and absolutely different. Like, I'm not more spiritual this side of ordination. I'm not better or wiser. And yet, the night of my private ordination, as I tried to sleep, it came to me that this was like massive. Shantavadri, my public preceptor, described ordination as like sending a depth charge into the universe. And ordination for me is about taking my place, committing to the 10 precepts, honoring the 4 lines of acceptance, and making a difference. And so I'm taking my place with my brothers and sisters in the order, the other people who have placed the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha at the heart of their being. And this is who I am. This is what I want. Bodhivasini, she who dwells in awakening.
I think we'll just have like a 3-minute leg stretch before we start the ritual. Okay, I just want to say actually that Bodhivasini didn't say, because you pioneered in a lot of ways, not only were the first women to be ordained under all those circumstances, but you were the first women's retreat to wear the robes, weren't you, as well? Yeah. So that was, yeah, so it's great to see them actually. Yeah. So yeah, just a 3-minute leg stretch and then we'll do the ritual, the puja. Should we go? Okay, so we're going to start the ritual by saluting the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And in the Great Hall, we'll do it in unison. And if you just do it quietly. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Namah. Om Om. So we're going to do the threefold puja in call and response. So it just has 3 short verses. After the puja, Bodhivasini will come up in silence and make the 3 traditional offerings to the shrine. And then we're going to have the a mantra, the Padmasambhava mantra from Leelamati. Sorry, the blessings. She's going to do the blessings first. Great. And are you doing those blessings in English or in Pali? Or in both. Great. Okay. Then we're going to have the mantra. And then we're going to have the 3 sadhus. So I'll say about the sadhus, and that's when you just need to take your mute off. Okay. And then we'll finish. Okay. So if we just want to, a couple of minutes in silence, just arriving in our bodies. Maybe taking a couple of deep breaths. So a threefold puja. Opening reverence. We reverence the Buddha, the perfectly enlightened one, the shower of the way. We reverence the Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha, which leads from darkness to light. We reverence the Sangha, the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples that inspires and guides. Reverence to the 3 jewels. We reverence the Buddha and aspire to follow him. The Buddha was born as we are born. What the Buddha overcame, we too can overcome. What the Buddha attained, we too can attain. We reverence the Dharma and aspire to follow it with body, speech, and mind until the end. The truth in all its aspects, the path in all its stages. We aspire to study, practice, realize. We reverence the Sangha and aspire to follow it. The fellowship of those who tread the way. As one by one, we make our own commitment. An ever-widening circle. The Sangha grows. Offerings to the Buddha. Reverencing the Buddha, we offer flowers. Flowers that today are fresh and sweetly blooming. Flowers that tomorrow are faded and fallen. Our bodies too, like flowers, will pass away. Reverencing the Buddha, we offer candles to him who is the light. We offer light. From his greater lamp, a lesser lamp we light within us. The lamp of Bodhi, shining within our hearts. Reverencing the Buddha, we offer incense. Incense whose fragrance pervades the air. The fragrance of the perfect life. Sweeter than incense. Spreads in all directions throughout the world.
Bhavati Sabha Mangalam Rakantu Sabha Devata Sabha Buddhanubhavana Sada Soti Bhavantu Te Bhavati Sabha Mangalam Rakantu Sabha Devata Sabha Dhammanubhavana Sada Soti Bhavantu Te Bhavatu Sabha Mangalam Rakantu Sabha Devata Sabha Sanganubhavana Sada Soti Bhavantu Te. May all blessings be yours. May all powers protect you. By the power of all the Buddhas, may all happiness be yours. May all blessings be yours. May all powers protect you. By the power of all dharmas, may all happiness be yours. May all blessings be yours. May all powers protect you. By the power of all the Sangha, may all happiness be yours.
Bodhivasini is just going to make the 3 traditional offerings.
don't think this is the time.
So now we're going to have the Padmasambhava mantra. So yeah, everyone's muted again, just to hear the Padmasambhava mantra, and then we'll finish with the 3 sadhus. Om Aham Vajra Guru Padmasiri Hum. 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 Okay, so we're going to have the transference of merit and self-surrender in call and response. May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. My personality throughout my existences, my possessions, and my merit in all 3 ways. I give up without regard to myself, for the benefit of all beings. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings, situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace. Okay, and finally, we have the 3 sadhus. So this is to really welcome Bodhivasini into back to Sheffield. So, sadhu,
Sadhu!
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 Big clap, big clap.